Hi, I'm Tamsin. I'm going to give you a quick run through of how to use the Listeria tool, which is a tool we use to make lists on Wikipedia based on data in Wikidata. So the tool's called Listeria, but the template's called Wikidata-based, so you might find it referred to by either name. And this is the documentation page for it on English Wikipedia. And scrolling down, we'll see usage instructions, which includes this reminder there's no consensus on English Wikipedia that you can use this template in Mainspace. So if you were to try, I speak from experience, if you were to try and put a Listeria table into Mainspace on Wikipedia in English, it will lose its dynamic nature. So the table will still exist, but it won't update. It won't be a dynamic table anymore. Which, can still be a useful thing. You can use Listeria to generate tables in the first place, but you'll have to update them manually as time goes on. So below those usage instructions is an example, and we'll come back to that example and look at that in a minute. And beneath that are parameters, which tell you that your Sparkle query comes first, then you define the columns that you want in your table, things like a sort order potentially, and then which links get shown. So you can set Listeria to, for instance, only show you articles that need creating. Or if you're having an event where you want people to improve existing articles, you could set it to only include existing articles and ignore red links. Okay, so those are parameters you can come back and play with, and I recommend you do that. So let's look at a couple of examples. What would you see if you use this tool? So I have some on my user page. For instance, I have a Listeria for women in architecture. So we were starting a wiki project on women in architecture. And so for this table, I've included, this is the default parameter for the list. So what I've said is use the default, and where there's a Wikipedia article, it will be linked to the Wikipedia article, and where there isn't, you'll see the name is in italics, and instead it links to Wikidata. Okay, so this is a kind of a mixed list, and I've said show me the description, an image if there is one, link to the Wikidata item. I want to see the awards people have won, because that really helps me decide who might be notable, or at least who might have enough information to write a page. And then I've included employers, because that can help you track down further information sometimes. So scrolling down, but you'll see there's quite a few people on this list, and this is really useful because we've been running architecture events for several years now, so you can keep coming back to this list. It'll keep getting updated as, for instance, award statements get added to Wikidata, and that's helpful. And the lists auto-update. You can set how often, and you can see in the history of the page, of course, how often that's actually happened. And you can update things manually if you need the table updated for a particular time and place. Okay, so another example. This is a Listeria for women New Zealand honours recipients in New Zealand. And this one's set to only show me people who haven't got a Wikipedia page. And I have similar kinds of parameters, description and image. I want birth and death dates. And for this one, I find it really useful to have the qualifier of when they got given the particular award. And the reason for that is I know that from 2014 onwards, I can access a statement that says why this person got this Companion of New Zealand Order of Merit. But before that, I can't, and so it's much harder to write an article about someone unless there's lots of other public sources. And it might seem that these columns are redundant, but actually this one isn't showing up if there isn't a date on the award, so this column is still useful for people who don't have that qualifier in Wikidata. Of course, I could go back and add the qualifiers, but if they're not showing up on the list, I wouldn't know to add them, would I? So this is quite a long list, and I want to show you this page to remember to tell you that you can have a second list on a table. So I've linked to this to make it easy because the lists are long, but this is on the same page. And this is a list of people who do have Wikipedia articles in order that I can easily check that their Wikipedia article mentions that they have this award. And because I've been working on these awards for several years, probably this table's a bit redundant. I think we've done all that work. I could probably get rid of it sometime. Okay, so what do these Listerias look like when you actually have to create them. So at the top of this page, there's always this text that I enter describing my list and reminding people not to edit it. And I kind of keep a little track of how many people are on it at different times. But here's the important bit. So from here down to this set of double brackets here, this is the bit that's going to vary according to what you want in your table. But before we look at that in detail, you will need to paste in something that looks a bit like this. And then underneath it, you will want this template here, Wikidata list end. If you don't include the Wikidata list end template underneath, you won't get a list. And all this stuff in between is what gets created by the tool. So you just ignore all that. Let's get back up to the top again. Right. Down a bit further. Here. Right. So this stuff that I'm highlighting now is what we create when we write this table. And it includes a sparkle search at the top, telling it what items to find on Wikidata. And then we have these columns. For this one, I've said read only, and I've said these are the columns, label, description, image, and so on. And the qualifier for award date, give me thumbnail images. And looking at my Sparkle query, now I generally come and create these pages when I've already been playing around with Wikidata Sparkle queries, so I tend to just paste it in as it was. So a lot of this stuff isn't necessary. You don't need these things up here. In fact, you don't need anything up here except for item. You do have to have item as your variable. So if I had been running the Sparkle query on Wikidata, I could have called this variable person or award winner or whatever I like, as long as I'm consistent about it. But for using Listeria, you must call it item. It's just a quirk. So you need item, and you need to tell it what item you want. In this case, for me, I'm saying the item is someone who won an award, and they must be a woman, and the award must be a part of the New Zealand Order of Merit. And if I wanted to try that out as a Sparkle query, there's a link on this page. I'm not going to do that right now. So that's what it looks like, but shall we try one? Often when I'm creating a Listeria table, I start with one that's similar. So I'm often doing award winners. I would just copy this and then change it on my new page. But you can also start from the example on the template page, and I think we should do that today. So let's create a new page. Dr. Thneed, Listeria lighthouses in New Zealand. And it'll say that page doesn't exist. We'll start it, and I'll paste in that example. Now, before you even save this page, you'll get this preview, and that preview allows you to run that Sparkle. So let me show you. And you can easily see then what the query is doing. It says instance of lighthouse located in Netherlands, but I don't want the Netherlands. I want New Zealand. So let's just change that really easily. Will it find anything? I may as well run the query and find out before I dedicate a whole Listeria to it. Yeah, there'll be 39 results. So I need to go back and change this part of my query so that it's not the Netherlands anymore, but New Zealand. And so if I ran that, I would get a table of lighthouses in New Zealand. I don't actually need that table, so I'm not going to. But I'm going to run another one that I have amended from this that looks for books that are part of a particular list called the list of 180 Maori authored books of New Zealand. So let's see that one. I've made this very simple Sparkle query, which is looking for items that are part of this list of 180 Maori authored books of significance. So we had a book published some months ago in New Zealand that identified 180 important books. And I think that's a good basis for doing some work on Wikidata and Wikipedia, which I'm hoping to bring in other people to do. And so it's a good use of Listeria, so we can all be looking at the same list and improving the same data. So currently my initial work has only identified 12 of these works on Wikidata. I've just run that query so we can see, but I'm not bothering with that, bringing in any other parameters around those because the Listeria tool will do that for me. I just need to have this very simple bit of Sparkle that says, give me these items that are on this list. And of course I could have done it differently. I could have set up Books of Mana wiki project and said the items must be on the focus list of that wiki project. I could have used this Sparkle to define my list in various ways. Okay, so that's the Sparkle. You'll see that here, items that are a part of this list. And then I've told it the columns I want. I want a number, so I know how many items there are. Give me the Wikidata item, and you can see this over here. I've already made this page so that you can see this preview over here, because it's a lot easier to understand when you can see them side by side. So bring in the label, but call it article, and bring in the description, bring in the instance of from Wikidata, or bring in the P31 and call it instance of, because I know there's going to be a variety. Some of them are versions, some of them are books, some of them are written works. P921, but call the column main subject, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can tell it what to call the columns. In the settings, I've just gone with our auto list is a useful one to understand. So what this is saying is if there is no description on Wikidata, come up with an automated description. So most of these have got descriptions on Wikidata, but this one does not. And I can tell because it's linked in here, which it wouldn't be otherwise. So this is an automated description that it's put together from the parts of the Wikidata item. So that's very useful, but you can change that setting if you don't want it to do that. Thumbnail images, updating, I presume frequency 7 is 7 days. I haven't quite figured out what WDE edit does. It's something about allowing you to edit Wikidata. Maybe it's in fact putting more links in here. I haven't quite figured out. I should try turning it off sometime and see what happens. Apparently it means that if the list gets very long, that can fail because it makes the list longer. Something to play around with anyway. Okay, so I already know this works, but let me show you what happens when you run it for the first time. So here is the Listeria example before it's been published. You'll see there's nothing on the right hand side, and we'll come down and we'll add an edit summary, and if only I could type first time. So you'll publish it, and then don't panic. There's never anything there the first time. What you need to do is go and update the list for the first time. And when you do that, you'll find out if what you've entered as your Sparkle query and so on actually works or not. So it takes you to this page, which is always the same. It tells you that it should be run within a minute, and you can click to go back to your page, and it's there straight away. And we can see it's worked really nice. We've got this table. We scroll down. We can see that one of these items has a Wikipedia page at the bottom, the rest don't. That's fine. And this is something I can now share with other people and we can work on together. Hopefully that's enough for you to get going with Listeria. Let me know if you have any questions.